Yo, McKenna Grace is a straight gangster.
What is happening here?
Her grandfather was a Ghostbuster.
So Ghostbusters Afterlife was directed by Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the original two Ghostbusters films. It stars McKenna Grace as Phoebe, granddaughter to Egon and a science whiz. The MVP of this film, she kills it. Phoebe kicks ass in this movie. We got Finn Wolfhard as our older brother Trevor, who's just an awkward teen trying to fit in a new town. Their mother, Callie, played by Carrie Coon, is Egon's daughter, who never really knew him that well and was hurt by that fact, pretty much. And then we have Podcast, who becomes a friend of Phoebe's in summer school, played by Logan Kim. And he's obviously got a podcast, and he has great chemistry with McKenna Grace. I really like them together. And then we have Paul Rudd, who plays Gary Gooberson, Phoebe's summer school teacher. And then when he gets in the mix too, like, my favorite chemistry in the film is Paul Rudd, McKenna Grace, and Logan Kim together. Those are a lot of my favorite moments and humor in the movie. The film follows the estranged family of Egon Spangler as they move out to his land in Summerville, Oklahoma when they find themselves evicted. The property they move to is called the Dirt Farm by the locals, who considered it some creepy place that was inhabited by some kooky hermit. Phoebe finds Egon's lab and realizes that she's a lot like him. And she investigates his past, and the more she learns about him, the more she really develops a bond with his memory. She really finds herself and comes into her own, and that's really the heart of the film and one of my favorite aspects about it. I really love the tone of this film. It feels right in line with the others, where it's a really fun sci-fi action comedy, but it still like takes itself somewhat seriously. It's not like overly like slapsticky or goofy, you know what I mean? The humor comes out in the situations and the characters just being fun and witty. And it's really helped by the score. The score is done by Rob Simonson, and he's taken Elmer Bernstein's original score, the different themes and sound cues from the original score, and really adapted them to this film while including a lot of his own elements. Having the original film's score like throughout the whole movie really made the film just feel genuine and like a Ghostbusters film. And it was really cool too, because actually the first two Ghostbuster films have like different scores. The second one's a little more like bombastic, like action blockbuster, but the first one has the more like spooky, mysterious music, and that's back in this film, and it's applied very, very well. Like, it was a joy just scene to scene to have that original score music like playing and seeing some familiar visuals with familiar sound cues to them and stuff like that. I really like the pacing of this film as well. I'm a big fan of older movies where the first act takes its time and you're just kind of hanging out with the characters before anything gets too crazy. So by the time it hits the second act, you're much more immersed, and the craziness that happens is much more impactful, I feel. And I feel like this movie had that kind of old school structure where at the beginning, it didn't feel like it was in a rush to get anywhere too fast. You were just kind of getting to know the characters and the situation and having a lot of fun doing that. This movie is just kind of a pure, fun, joyous ride, whether you've seen any of the Ghostbusters movies or if you haven't. Like, take your whole family to see this and you will have a good time regardless, I guarantee it. This movie explains everything you need to know fairly easily, through the characters of Phoebe and Podcast as they learn about Egon and the Ghostbusters. This movie really is just a love letter to the fans, to Harold Ramis. It's a celebration of the original movie and Harold Ramis, and it's executed like just beautifully. The ending of this film is just a beautiful thing. You will see some of you did not think you were gonna see in this film, and you will just be like, oh man, you'll just be like, this is a beautiful thing, man. This is a beautiful thing. I feel like there's a meta-narrative kind of involved in this film with Jason Reitman being the son of Ivan Reitman, making the next Ghostbusters movie, because there's a lineage thing going on in the movie, but outside of the movie as well. And I feel like he's the perfect voice for all the people who grew up with Ghostbusters since they were like a kid in the 80s, because he did as well, but you know, times 10, because he grew up with the Ghostbusters and the director. But I think having his perspective gave him the ability to have a movie that kids are gonna go see and love, but also adults, especially ones who grew up with Ghostbusters. Something between Jason Reitman's directing and McKenna Grace and Logan Kim's like chemistry together as they're like learning how to be Ghostbusters, like makes you feel like a kid again.
There!
What do we do?
I love this car. Go, go, go!
And this felt like a classic 80s movie to a degree. It's like what other movies have been trying to do, like Super 8 or Stranger Things, but this one like nailed it. It didn't feel like it was like an imitation. It felt more pure and genuine. And the fan service like felt right. It wasn't distracting. There was just a lot of heart and genuineness to it, and everything just felt the right amount. And I really felt going through that I liked the story and characters so much that was already going on that the movie could stand on its own without the original cast coming back. So the fact that they do is like the icing on the cake. When the boys show up, it's just a beautiful thing. Like like well, this movie exceeded my expectations. I went in like excited. At first I was cautiously optimistic, and I let myself get like a little excited the closer we got, and then when I went in there, it did not disappoint. I came out with my expectations exceeded. I felt like a kid again. It felt like a classic 80s movie. It had great pacing, classic score, had great new additions like Paul Rudd in a Ghostbusters movie. Like, that's freaking awesome. This was like a smaller film. The scale was still big once, you know, the villains come full force, but I like that it was like a small town. This felt like Ghostbusters, the indie film, because he usually does kind of like indie films, and he was able to bring that style to Ghostbusters and make it work, and it still felt like a Ghostbusters movie, but happening in this small town in Oklahoma. I really enjoyed that. When our boys show back up, they are the real deal. They feel like those characters 150%. Like, it doesn't feel like phoned in or awkward after all these years. Like, they felt like those characters, and it was glorious.
Hey, have you missed us?
Anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. Let me know what you thought about Ghostbusters Afterlife in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again real soon. You guys have a great one.